Hello, how are you? Back with another installment of whatever this is. I'm really inspired by all of the news and social media postings I have been seeing regarding Jennette McCurdy's new book. That has a title I should have looked up before I started this video. Is it "I'm happy my mother died" or "I'm not sad my mother died"? Something of the sorts. You should look it up. I'm sure it's a bestseller by now. It's been out 3 days. I have not got to read it yet, but I have watched pretty well every single interview she's done. I have really been intrigued by the way she's carried herself and she's enunciated herself. More interested though in the commentary that it has spurred up underneath all of the videos. Very polarizing. You have people who are way for it, and then you have people who are literally like saying this is the tackiest thing that they've ever seen in their entire life. Her mother's no longer here to, justify things or defend herself. How dare you do this post-mortem? Blah, blah, blah. I wanted to share my story because I'm not gonna say we have similar stories, but I feel like we have similar feelings, and I don't know, we've dealt with things in similar ways. So, the beginning of my Oliver Twist moment starts when I was, like 11, 12? And I was at my wit's end, honey. I was there. I was absolutely there. At that point, I had already asked everyone I knew if they would report for me. Most of them did. And people would come out to the house and they would leave. But they would always call ahead. So the locks on our doors and stuff would be taken off. The locks on the refrigerator and the food would be taken off. A lot of things would be cleaned. A heavy cycle of manipulation was also involved. So we would even like things as extreme as like go out as a family and like have fun together, which is something that we literally never done unless there was going to be a home visit very soon or the next day. Didn't really realize until I was quite a bit older that was to get us in a good mood, because they knew that people were going to be coming soon, and also they would be like, oh hey look, we just went to the park, we just did this, and it could kind of be easier to fake that might be part of our day-to-day life when it was in reality something that only happened if a supervisor, investigator, somebody was coming out. It was all manipulation. There was no, my upbringing, especially at this home, which unfortunately was a good number of years, like 9, 10 years, was very cold and indifferent. They weren't necessarily involved at all. They didn't care. But they did whenever people were coming around, and they would clean the entire house. Like I said, like our rooms, the locks and everything would be taken from the doors. The food would be unlocked. Everything would be changed back to the way it would be if you were assuming somebody's fostering children with an earnest heart. The investigators would come through. Whoever made the claims would be looked at as a liar. And things would go on, and it had gotten to the point where they were no longer really investigating anymore, because I think they had just thought, I was quite literally told to my face by an investigator that I was a brat who didn't know how good she had it. Meanwhile, I'm getting locked in my room for upwards of 12 hours a day. I am being used as a servant to the point that everyone in my community knows it. And it was actually, I'm not gonna say it was joked about, but things, take for instance, somebody's gonna come pick me up. Something like, oh, we're gonna save you for a little while. We're gonna take you and save you so you can have a little bit of fun. And things like that were said to me so often that it was really just pounded into my mind that everyone knew the suffering that we were going through in this house. Everyone. The school we went to knew. There was many adults, a lot of them that should have been morally and ethically and legally bound to report this kind of thing. And instead, I got these weird, like, encrypted messages that they knew that I was suffering and they were gonna help, but not help enough to, like, upset the family because children would get taken away. So what I did a lot of things. There was one time I straight up called the cops and said, I'm not living here anymore, and if I tell me I have to live here, I'm going to literally unalive myself. So they put me in a mental hospital and then sent me back 2 weeks later. So from there, I had to become a lot smarter. And I started just making a list of things that I was doing that I knew that I should not be doing as 11, 12-year-old. At that point, my maternal caregiver was 100% bedridden. I was going to say incapacitated, but I wouldn't go that far, but bedridden. I was her caregiver. I was taking care of her. I was bathing her. I was tending to her cracked, bleeding lymphedema legs. I was feeding her, everything. I mean, I literally bathed the woman. I put her socks on her feet, everything. And I did know that that wasn't right. And it was getting to the point where she wasn't able to go to the restroom, and we were having to clean that up as well. I was like, I should not be this woman's caregiver. So I wrote a letter. I wrote a strongly worded letter, and I went through the phone book, and every single person that had anything to do with child human services at all in the entire state of Illinois, I sent them a letter. Hand wrote every single one. There's probably about a dozen. I stole a whole book of stamps from my mom, and I put them out in our mailbox, and then spent the entire day absolutely terrified that my mom would go out and somebody would check the mail before the mailman took it. And thank gods that they did not. And 2 weeks later, I got up. It was the first time in my entire life I had done this, but I intercommed up to my mom because, like I said, she was bedridden at this point. She couldn't come. We had an intercom system that went straight to her bedroom. And very cold and indifferent upbringing, I'll tell you what. And I told her, I was like, you know what, I'm really sick. I was throwing up all night. I can't. And if I would have gone to school that day, they would have come to the school and they would have interviewed me there. Since they did not, they came unannounced for the first time in a decade, and they saw that I was locked in my room, that I had no access to food and water or a bathroom. They saw that we had no access to food, that every single morsel of food in that house was locked up. The refrigerator had chains around it, so did the cupboards. It was literally like living in hell. There was cameras on the inside, on the outside. We lived in prison as workers for these people. And I was taken away that day. And for years, I viewed that as a really selfish moment for me, and a stupid moment, and a stubborn moment where I should have just stayed. I was like, you know, especially like in college years when I was dealing with homelessness and I had less resources and all of this, I was like, if I would have just stayed, I would have had more resources, I would have had all of these things. And now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, that was like literally the first time I stood up and I said, this isn't right, I need more. And what's even more important is after I left, they looked at me, a little 12-year-old, and they said, you know, we've heard stories from this house before, we just couldn't prove it. If you will testify and this person will testify, we can shut this home down. After 25, whatever, however many years, we can shut this down. We can put this to bed forever, and they will never have another child in their home again. And when I tell you that every single person, every single animal, a biological child, every single person who was touched by this family was deeply traumatized. Deeply. I don't know one person as an adult who's well-adjusted, but deeply traumatized. We have significant triggers due to these people. I was, yeah, absolutely, positively, yep, put me up there. I'll do my best. That would never come to be. As I said, my maternal caregiver was very ill. She had been. And she ended up actually passing away. And before she did, she called me 2 times. I don't actually know if it was her who called or if it was hospice or the exact details, All I know is that the first time she called, I denied the call. I didn't want to talk to her. Second time she called, my foster mom came to me and she said, Katie, this is really serious. It's probably the last time you're ever going to be able to have this conversation. But I'm not going to force you to talk to her. And I denied the call again. And there isn't a morsel of my human being that regrets that. Matter of fact, I think I would have regretted it if I did take that call, because I would have felt compelled to give her peace that she did not deserve. Every single person that's commenting underneath Jennette's story saying that you shouldn't be coming after her after she's... No, what are you saying? What peace did her mother give her in life? What peace did my mother give me in life? That woman tortured me twice. Not beat, not abuse, torture. I sent my soul away from my body as a child so my meat could survive, and a very big part of that was her hands. I owed her no peace, and I still owe her no peace. And I'm damn proud of myself. And I'm also proud of Jennette, honestly. A way to go, to come out, to literally be so bold as to say, I'm fucking glad my mom died. Good for you, honey. Honestly, and if anyone wants to come out and say that she shouldn't do that or it's tacky or whatever, I'm actually really glad that your experience has limited your view. And that sounds beautiful for you, because when I hear that, I deeply relate to it in a very big way. And I'm really glad she shared her story, because it really wasn't until then that I thought that I should come out and share my story, because it seems pretty harsh that my dying mother called me and I denied her peace. But in turn, I get it. And ultimately, I'm the one who deserved it. I hope she's gone where she's going and she's met her peace there. But the person she abused, I didn't owe her that. Anyways, I actually am in a great mood. I feel wonderful. This is an awesome story to tell. I think I'm going to come out with more stories of times that I had to be really strong as a child, that I used to have really negative viewpoints around, that I feel really awesome about now. And I think that's where I'm going to start. And then maybe from there I'll start telling the stuff that kind of just sucks when. I'll see you.